102.8. 140. 38 kilos.
Right when winter turned to spring around the farm, Yuki and I went for our so far longest adventure. 170 kilometers of hiking through the mountains, pretty much across the peninsula that we call home in the middle of Norway.
This should take about 12 days of walking, depending on if he or I need a break. Then it might be more 14 days. I have 14, so we have 2 rest days planned in. First 300 meters, sweating a lot, getting used to the backpack. Yuki is doing much better than I do. Now we're having the first descent, and then we're hopefully on a bit more even terrain. We're not going to take the pilgrimage route today. For the next 14 days it's more like off-road and no route. The first lake on the trip is the freshwater reservoir down for the village in the mountain. You're not really allowed to camp or fish much here, but the good thing is there's so many more lakes to come that really doesn't matter. The sun is boiling. It's just 11 degrees, but for hiking, 11 degrees in sun is more than warm enough. One of the best things in Norway is you don't really have to bring a full bottle every time you're walking. As long as you're in the lower parts of the mountains, there will be streams, there will be rivers and lakes. So most of the times you will have enough drinkable water. Just when you're going a little higher in the more stony areas, I would suggest you bring a 1.5 liters. If you have a bit of a weak stomach, you may bring a purifier, but in Norway pretty much everybody is drinking from it.
One of my goals with this long hike was to map out some hiking routes and find all the shelters that I've heard rumors about, to see if they are usable and what kind of condition they are. Most of them could need a few repairs though.
Too much sweat in the eyes. We just did the worst forest passage of the whole trip. Wasn't that pleasant, but from now on it's only walking at around the same altitude level and descending for today. Hope that's going to be much more pleasant. 2.5 kilometers left. This behind me is called gamme in Norwegian, and it's a traditional house with a soil and grass roof. Quite good insulation properties, I assume. This house here belongs to the local Folkehøyskole. I don't know how you would explain that. Not fully a university, but a post-school education. And they have it for their students, and I can use it if I'd wanted to. Kinda nice. Sausage. Cute boy. I'm filming this particularly wonderful shot pretty much only because my right quadriceps really started cramping. I kinda need to kneel down on the floor to give it a rest every 50 to 100 meters. And here's the best boy. He's doing so well with the backpack. Very impressed by him. Some of the river parts here are quite deep. Saw fish surfacing on the other side, but there was a little bit more sun already. And I've got this super tiny bobber set up. Should be enough to throw it over there. Get a few worms, and at least set that one up when we are trying to unpack a little. Make a bit of food for the dog. Maybe we'll already get a fish. From a distance it looked like there was already activity around here. I think that's a bit more wishful thinking than anything else. Not sure about the fish, but at least the backpack is getting lighter for the next days. Pretty decent sleep this night. Still a little bit hangover. Let's see how it is to get the backpack back on. Calves and shoulders are hurting quite a lot. But the weather is super nice, and I'll wrap up, have a bit of breakfast, coffee, and we get going again. Or crawling. There we go! Very nice branch out. Nothing too big, but breakfast for him. Here we go again. 25 degrees today. Way too warm. We're just walking from shadow to shadow. On the hotter days in the mountains, you have this wonderful smell of pine everywhere. The trees are releasing their aerosols and the ground is getting dry. Smells like real Tuscany up here. Somebody just saw the first bigger animal of the trip. Just a regular roe deer. Now he has his second wave of energy, so I think our descent gonna be a bit faster. Fresh river water. It's so warm today. But this is amazing. I don't think there are many things I enjoy more than this. This was supposed to be our potential resting spot. There's not too much left over from that cabin. You can see it has probably been falling down quite a few years ago. Could still make a decent coffee. The last few 100 meters really got me. I think slightly dehydrated. Water is on the other side here. So, try some honey. See if that slight glucose spike gets me over the hill. This one we're definitely not going to need today. Otherwise we have everything that we need here. I already heard some fish jumping over there, so you're gonna get the bobber out straight away. Not gonna miss any opportunities here. And then when that is out, I think I'll start fishing over there at the same time with the rod.
Great to have the sweat of the body. Having that in your eyes isn't all too pleasant all day long. Magical here. Swimming in a calm mountain lake in Norway, and it's that warm that you actually need to cool down a little. You don't get that often here.
Think we got something? Looks small again. Oh no! Oh yeah, it's still on. Yes. There we go! Tiny, but fish. Second one, all on the worm, nothing on the rod. Ready for breakfast? This is the valley that we're going to cross. Just keeping on the right side of the water, and then on the next water. We are trying to avoid any climbing whenever possible. It is surprisingly dry at the moment. You hear maybe a little bit of it. This is normally covering your boot at least halfway. Just hasn't rained in a very long time. Very nice and clear water. Flowing well too. So I assume if there's no hurdle, the fish will pile up here in autumn. If you watch very closely here, then in about 100 meters you see that light bit of red, and that is our nice cabin for the lunch break. Just one last rest here in the shade before we have at least, I think, 70% of today's march done. I don't think this one is looking too promising anymore, but enough for a break. Regardless of the fact that this cabin was locked, even though we hoped it was open, we're gonna have a break here, and these are pretty much my two favorite hiking snacks: dark chocolate and cashew nuts. One replenishing salt, the other one a little bit of caffeine when you're not having the time to make a coffee, and obviously also a little bit of sugar, quite a lot of fat. Both pretty high energy, and for me at least, very easy digestible. I'm pretty much going through half a pack of each every day. So for a 14-day trip, we had 7 packs of cashew nuts, 7 packs of dark chocolate, and I'm having them somewhere in the midday between the morning breakfast and the dinner in the evening. I think we reached peak exhaustion for today. One more hill behind me. But you see those birch leaves give a little shade for one last rest before it's descending. God, that was something. Nice and cool in here with the grass roof and everything we need, even some gas in a stove. What are you sniffing for? I would really like to have set up this fishing net just right over the bay there, but it's getting a little late, unfortunately. It's 9 o'clock. Still need a swim and some dinner, so I think today we kinda need to keep the fish aside and prioritize the sleep. Tomorrow is gonna be the longest hike. I don't really like that. Breakfast. We're closing in on the first road crossing. Cabins are coming in sight. Pretty nice for a change to see an actual human-made path and not only game trails. Especially with those boards over the most boggy parts. I said and stepped right into it. We're actually on the ski slopes now, so for a kilometer or so we are having this wide of a road before we're gonna turn left again onto more mud road. Still quite luxury. This is really unusually warm for Norway. At least you find some shade in the forest. We decided to go a bit risky over there, climbing up a few stones, 4 or 5 meters overhang. I stepped into a hole. Luckily nothing happened, we're back down. This is a very good moment to realize that when you're hiking or climbing, it's never worth taking risks. Just rather go back to where the trail or the leftovers of the trail are supposed to be and take an hour longer. It's not worth breaking your camera, breaking your phone, breaking your bones. Not at all. Pretty good outcome for the fall. Just one minor wound. I actually think that I lost my bialetti to brew coffee, which is very unfortunate. but I'm not risking to go back there. A little bit of pain in the calf, but that's also gonna be alright. Was that nice? More than enough if you just have to stay a night. I think we should still go to where we planned originally to go, even though it's getting pretty late. This is the lake that we are supposed to arrive to today. Just on the other end of it is a small stone cabin. But the last 400 meters from here to there, pretty tough. We've been walking since for 12 hours now, and I have really not much left. Neither does he. Maybe with 1 or 2 breaks we can still make it over there. It's 3 o'clock soon. We haven't been up for that long. Technically we're supposed to hike 15 kilometers today, but 2 blisters on the feet, slightly abrasions from the fall. We see if we take it a little slower. Amazing it can feel to have some shade and wind before going back out into the sun. This is very refreshing. Wonderful to see course markings for once. Makes life much easier. My biggest enemies are back. Fighting flies. Moderate numbers for now though. This must be water break number 20 today. You see, you're going through a lot of water just hiking. We may have 4 kilometers to go, but this lake that we just passed by is full of fish. It's splashing left and right. Don't know if it's big fish or not. It could be a very easy dinner, at least a very easy dog snack. So I think we're gonna take half an hour, try 2-3 lures, and then hope we get us a very good meal for the camp 4 kilometers from here. But it is small. We've got 4 now after just a few minutes. I quickly cut those guys up. They're so tiny, they're even gonna fit in a pack of cashew nuts. It's never a good sign. It's not gonna be much dinner, but it's better than none. We didn't really get to the place where I aimed to go to because of the late morning from yesterday's hangover hike, but that's also right. This should do as our spot for the night. Now, first 3 things: temp protection, tent, and insulation mat. Then I'll put the sleeping bag in and have a bath, switching out of those very sweaty gloves, otherwise you get cold rather quickly. A bit more even ground here. A few less twigs that could damage the tent, so pretty good spot. Fishing water there, drinking water there. Sunrise there, but you can't escape it anyways. Somebody very much found this place already.
The grouse is not happy with me eating fish. This is so good.
Today is the first actual breakfast. Cutting up a little bit of the deer meat that I was smoking last autumn, together with some onions and some beans. At least a bit of protein. And the good thing with smoked meat is you can transport it pretty well. It's obviously much drier than fresh meat, much longer shelf life. Absolutely amazing color. this is pretty much 85% of the terrain that we're walking in. Puddles and swampland. So if you're gonna do something similar, I suggest getting a pair of boots which are at least partly rubber, because no Gore-Tex or leather will stand this. This is the river that we're aiming to cross later, and then go up all the way there and over. Now, first we have to go down, and that can be a bit tricky in Norway. We made a tiny detour. One steep part didn't work out, but if you're in doubt, you can always follow these guys. The game trails are normally establishing over centuries, and it's very hard to argue with that much knowledge. Absolutely magical here. It is so calm. I wonder if anybody ever comes here. You see those little yellow flowers blooming on the riverbed. The only thing you kinda hear in the background is the waterfall that we just passed. You can see fish surfacing in between the rocks. Ow! Oh, sorry. Maybe they have ice cream. The good thing about this tent is that he can have his space where he's directly laying on the grass, and I'm having this chamber right next to it, so he doesn't have to sleep directly in the tent, which is much more comfortable for him. This is still Kirivanne, where we were having the tent last night. So now we're crossing the outlet there and go up into the terrain. Soon the tree border should be fully gone, and I hope it's going to be an easy walk today. It's the first time that I'm seeing clouds since we started walking, I think 7 days ago. Feels really good. Let's hope it doesn't turn into rain clouds too quick. Those swampy places are always the worst breaking spots. Here the biting flies are pretty much all centered. 3 types as of now, and they are all quite hungry. It isn't as bad as it can be here, but it's also not too pleasant. Yuki's also quite annoyed with it. It's much better if you're up higher on the mountain, where there are less trees, less swampland, and much more wind. Let me film for people. The first view of Ormsøyvannet. That's the lake that we're going to have the summer camp later in August. But for now we're not even making it all the way down, but just go over these mountains there. Those are these clouds that you don't necessarily want to see when you're on top of a mountain. So I'll try to go on a little quicker. Thundering over there. I'm very glad that it's not us. Otherwise I would probably go as quick as possible down from the mountain. But in this case it seems like staying over there. Home pretty much. First reindeers of the trip. If you see those black dots on the snow there, actually quite a lot of reindeers. And it's exactly where I need to walk. Maybe I can walk a little bit more to the left to not get them all going at once. That were definitely the fastest 5 kilometer we've done on this trip. Normally we do like 2 an hour. Now it was 5 in shortly under an hour. Thunder and lightning is definitely a good motivator. It's just not nice feeling to be on the mountain tips when the clouds are getting grey. I guess it's evolutionary quite ingrained to just go down. This looks like unused Sami reindeer herding shelters. There are actually 3 of them. I think if we're lucky, the rain clouds are still passing by. It's just very good to have a safety zone for the backpack and the gear before things are starting to pour. Wait, I'll take the backpack. You always need to have everything for him in extra waterproof bags, because he likes to go swimming with the backpack on as well. Still pouring, not too far from here. We really have a golden position. Today is actually also the first time that we have a problem that we hadn't had before, which is mosquitoes. There are quite a few around here. Don't know if you will see it. Also some of the smaller biting flies. So the number one thing you bring to all of these trips, especially because they're not going to be in May, is mosquito spray. Nothing really biting on my spare spinner after losing my favorite yesterday. This is the best thing that could happen now. It was supposed to be eaten with fish, but so much for that. So good. Can't imagine how much you miss the soul and meat. Bit windy today. It's supposed to get worse. This is where we are going down to where you see the other part of the water, the part of Langvannet and Sea. And then we're going to make our way all the way up there and over and on. Finally the wind has stopped and you can hear the birds again. There's fish in here. Now it's uphill, 250 meters in height meters to go up. The first bit is the steepest, then it flattens out a little. But I can always have this respect for starting a new project on the route. So I'm always having a little break here. Just being careful not to make it too long, otherwise I'm getting a bit stuck. It was a bit steep. A bit more. Real highway here. Signs of civilization, or two farms, and we are going up the mountain behind them. So it's the last time for this trip that we're actually gonna have to cross a street. Exciting. Feels very awkward to walk on asphalt again. It's a bit faster than taking the other route through more swamp for today. This time it wasn't too much going on the street. Haven't seen a car. This just doesn't stop. Seems endless.
It's a bit more moody today. We have slight rain, I think, for the next 2-3 hours. So it feels like a good idea to just sit it out in here and take the tent down when it is a little less moist than this. Even though it looks pretty nice. Because it's gonna be 2 coffees today. It's already clearing up pretty well. You see these mountain tips I would need to have a bit more free. But this is pretty much already doable. So I'll start packing and we make our way to a fishing water that I got recommended by one of the guys in charge for the mountains here. We could really make do with some extra food. When you're hiking in Norway, clothes have a tendency to get wet. I left this t-shirt outside after I washed it in the night and didn't fully dry. And in these cases it's much easier, even though more uncomfortable, to put it on. It dries much faster with the body heat than when you just store it inside in the tent. It might take 20 or 30 minutes to dry, but it's better than 5 or 6 hours in the tent that you normally don't have. Look at that crystal clear water. We are very slow today. Yuki's very tired. I'm doing alright, I would say. But I don't want to pace him too much. So we didn't take too long in the fishing break. That we are making it to the cabin, and tomorrow it's supposed to rain. So I hope we're having a rest day, which he very much needs. Just fishing and reading. And it's still about 8 kilometers left. But it's nice. Wonderful hiking weather today. And once more I brought ourselves in a stupid situation. We took a path that looked good on the map, but it wasn't so good in real life. Now we're kind of climbing down next to a river. Just 20 meters more to go, but it's really steep. Fell once more, nothing happened, luckily. Just this sideways going along the mountainside always gets me. There's always a way to slip here.
in these situations, just take it very, very slow. If you do anything fast, you fall and hurt yourself. If you're doing it really slow, you have a good chance of just being fine. That right there is the sign of a good night's sleep. This is the rest day today, so I think we're gonna keep it a little active, especially because we're quite low on food. So I'm gonna go fishing all around the lake here and see if we can also make it to the connection of the river on the other side, and we can see if there is actually a path for the hike that we're having on the menu tomorrow. I think the weather was supposed to change at around 2 o'clock, so we should have at least 2 more hours of sun. A little windy today. You can see 2 loom over there in the very distance, or you can't, I just could. And that's what we heard this morning. They're also on a fishing trip, and it's very nice to always have a binocular with you to see the animals, because when you're kind of loudly walking through the country with a dog as well, then you very rarely see anything. And if you're just glassing the hills every now and then, it's much more interesting. You're kind of on a safari, just on a distance. Finally we got number 1. I had to sharpen the spinner a little bit. The hook was very old and rusty and it wasn't hooking anymore. But now it does. Just using a stone from the lake. After giving it a few smacks on the hat, I normally just puncture the head plate and then thereby get right into the brain, making sure that the fish is dying as quick as possible. It got really silent now. Seems like the rain is just around the corner. And we would have definitely still been on the mountain at this time. Looks like the bridge was holding from yesterday, even though there was a bit of rainfall. I'm taking the easy route. We're having a quite decent pace today. I'd say halfway up the peak, second highest peak of the area. But the biting flies are really annoying. It's no mosquitoes and no of the tinier gnats, but the big horseflies, they are chasing you down here, even though we have a little bit of wind. There it is, highest peak of the trip, 640, 44, something like that. And this guy over there should be the highest mountain of the region with 675. Highest point. You can see pretty far from here. Pretty much everywhere. What you're seeing here is one of the Sami setups for reindeer herding. I assume that here the sorting of the animals takes place. I wouldn't know perfectly well what they're doing, but this looked like a sorting area. And in this text that I showed a little earlier, it was written that this whole area here was planned to be used for military fly and tank practice. I'm very happy it didn't come to that. We're at this place of contemplation again. Yuki is just getting rid of mosquitoes. Or trying to. 3.5 kilometers left until we have our sleeping spot. Feet are burning again, even though we had a rest day. Hasn't really made a big difference. And at one point you just sit down to rest, and it feels like you are never going to stand up again. Until you realize that you need to check that hike of the day of your mind. Otherwise it haunts you. It's like, I can't stop it, or I can't. So it's a diabolical thing, those long breaks and then having to get up again. That's gonna be home for tonight. Just somewhere along that shoreline. Only a few throws in. First one on. Bit colder than usual today, so we're gonna have some mashed potatoes, instant mashed potatoes with just olive oil and spices. Very much looking forward to something warm. And then afterwards we're gonna fry up some bacon and have the fish that we caught. I'm definitely going to spend a bit more time in the tent today. It is still mildly raining, so the tent is quite wet and I really prefer to pack it in dry. With the 9 hours that we have to go today, I should have at least another coffee in here. I should have 2 hours until we actually need to leave. It isn't really staying dry today, so I think we're giving it our best shot. Now that it's not raining and it's a little moist, but we'll be alright. We'll maybe dry it over the next night. Shouldn't be too bad to have on the outside of the backpack. Down here we've got Elksjön, the Moose Lake. We've been there earlier this year when there was still ice on the water. And now we are not going to the main part, but to this tiny part of it over there. Wonderful to be out of the wind from the mountains and also to hear all the common birds again. The wind is obviously quite loud, so haven't heard anything all day. They're still here. We are going to have one more hill-ish to cross. A bit over 2 kilometers more to go. It was a fairly simple hike today. Tomorrow is going to be more challenging. But I'll take it. Nice to have just 9 kilometers a day. Much nicer than always having to go pretty much all out in the 15-17 kilometer hikes. This is what's much more enjoyable. If you're going out into nature, I wouldn't recommend doing that long distances. I did this now to do the full stretch for a different project, but for private purposes, 8 kilometers a day. I think that's the sweet spot. Every time we are arriving at a new place, the camp search obviously starts again. In Norway, avoid the stuff that seems dry on the surface, but has a little bit more fluff to it than this. That will be swampy, and if you have rain, it will soak up like a sponge. What you are looking for is heather-ish berry ground. A little higher, and best case, with a little slope to each side, so the rain can run off. We got number 3. That means this one is done for today. I'm getting pretty cold, so it's time for a bath and then some food. One of the most important things for me to bring when I'm eating quite a lot of fish is spices. It can be quite boring if you only have fish, salt and pepper. I generally had a problem with socks all life long. They always get holes after very short periods of time. So for this hike I'll try these guys from Darn Tough with a life guarantee. And so far, 150, 160 kilometers in, no holes, no nothing. This here is exactly the space that I'm looking for to build the little cabin that I was speaking about in a few other videos. A cabin built only by manual tools without using any electricity. There are a few things that you need though. One is access to timber for obviously the building structure and the interior. The other is having access to a big lake. The more space you can travel with a boat or a canoe, the more resources you get access to, like sand, different sizes of gravel and different kinds of trees. It also helps a lot with providing fish, and there are actually not so many places where you can get all of that. This one here is definitely high on the list. The mountains look very rugged in the back, you can view far and you have still some space around you. Quite something I enjoy. Problem here is more that this is a nature reserve, and getting a permission to build even that small cabin without a big footprint in the landscape is very low. I must admit that descent was a little steep, but once more the deer paths helped a lot. I really don't need any forest lions anymore. It's always biting flies and you're always getting stuck with the backpack. And it's always steep too. Twisted my ankle 2-3 kilometers back quite well, I have to say. Pace is getting a little slower now. I guess a kilometer an hour. And I took a slightly longer path just to have less climbing, less uneven ground. Still gonna make it. It's bearable, but you can feel that the ankle is wanting to swell. And if I make too long breaks, it's getting worse. So slow and steady today. You have to expect that things like this happen on that long of a hike. Just did this tiny jump that I shouldn't have done, 20 centimeters or so. And there you go. In addition to the ankle, we also couldn't take the route that I had actually planned. It's quite steep, 1.5 meters up, basically vertical. And that's not so easy with a dog, even with lifting him. So now we're trying an alternative route. We made it up. Looks very good and tempting to put up the tent. Last night in the mountains feels both good and bad at the same time. I know you can't really see that and I'm sorry about it, but just on the other side there was a moose crossing half a minute ago. Now it's slowly making its way up along the river into the mountains there. I wish I could bring you the longer lens, but it's too much to carry. The moose is back, just standing there on the other side of the water. Can see him quite well with the binoculars. Definitely checking us out. Seems like a very young animal. Maybe 1.5 years old. Probably hasn't seen too many humans before. He's sniffing. The wind is coming from our back towards him, and now he's turning off.